Hello, welcome to the lesson on globalization, development and society. And today module is about resistance and justice movement, and it's about land. Let's understand that how globalization have affected land relations. As the resource demand of globalization increased, land has emerged as the key reason of conflict. The establishment of heavy industry, building of dams and introduction of development tactics in tribal areas and rural zones has necessitated dislocation of local population. These lands were purchased from the public, and in many instances, farmers sold their land in case of national interest at very cheap rates. Further, the state passes on the land rights to the private companies for the development of projects. As a result of this, many peasant families were displaced from their traditional territories. Devastation of forest as a consequence of felling of trees for industrial purposes has endangered the small communities of hunters and food gatherers. In the early post-colonial India, land was seen as a source for equitable development. In 1961, the Land Reforms Law came into being. It was expected to improve agricultural efficiency, broaden the distribution of benefit, and thereby move towards larger societal equality. But one by one, various legislation for land reform are being diluted to enable changes in the land position. The introduction of macroeconomic reform in 1991 was a serious challenge to the state-level development plans and programs. The introduction of the market-driven economy reform in India was perhaps due to the fiscal crisis that India was only able to overcome with the financial support from the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. This support was not of significant benefit to the marginalized sector of the population. Recent industrialization effort in India, particularly in many states, have created widespread social and political tensions. Most of this is attributed to land grab events for building industrial or economic park, which have been marred with resistance, often transgressing into violent riots with heavy casualties. In India, 65% of people are dependent on land. Since the last decade, state government as well as Government of India have been enthusiastic to thrust the plan of special economy zone as an instrument of rapid industrialization and development. After the introduction of the process of rapid industrialization, a mania has gripped several states to follow this route. There is no doubt that the principal source of livelihood of farmers is land, and if the land is acquired, they lose their source of livelihood. During the fast pace of sanction and establishment of this zone and the noticeable achievement, the development of SEZs has faced extensive resistance and is being stalled in many cases. The reason behind such resistance are that there is no suitable land use policy in India, excluding in a couple of states like Kerala. In Kerala, this legislation was brought in very recently, where the large tracts of paddy fields were converted to residential and commercial complexes. Let's now try and understand the land use policy in India, and for that we will begin with Land Acquisition Act of 1894 during the colonial rule. The Land Acquisition Act 1894, a nearly 120-year-old law enacted during the British rule, which drafted the purpose for which land may be purchased, the procedure for possession, and the payment of compensation for such acquisition, was an outdated legal document. The heart of the trouble is the fact that the foundation of this industrial project generally requires the forced acquirement of land and the expulsion of its previous user. This is possible for Indian state under the Land Acquisition Act of 1894 for public purposes. The invocation of public purpose for what are essentially private commercial business enterprises has been repeatedly questioned. A growing number of studies have focused on the welfare effect of optimum compensation in the context of industrialization-led displacement. Ghatak and Ghosh suggest a revision of the Land Acquisition Bill enacted in 1894, which binds compensation based on market value of land at the time of the acquisition. Land Acquisition Act 2013. Since the Land Acquisition Act 1894 was a very old law as imposed in India since the time of the British rule, it was replaced by a Right to Fair Compensation Act, Transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act 2013. This Act also turned out to be a toothless tiger and has not been able to solve the problems of rural and tribal people because of certain limitation. Increase in unemployment. Due to these huge projects, the employment is supposed to rise. Unfortunately, in SEGs, entrepreneurs and companies have invested more wealth in the business and used capital tilting techniques, which resulted in increased unemployment. The farmers who have lost their source of income with the loss of their land also do not get jobs in SEGs. Neglect of agriculture sector. Due to the land acquisition, agricultural area gets reduced and it affects the agricultural produce. The reduced agricultural produce is insufficient for the population, resulting in the need for grain import. Mass migration from rural area. Another impact is that with the creation of heavy mechanized industry in the urban areas, the rural population starts migrating into towns and cities, thereby making the unemployment problem more acute and complex. Effects on livelihood. One of the long-term impacts of forced displacement is the loss of livelihood. This is even more so the case when loss of livelihood is not compensated for. There are also effect which brings a degradation to the environment around. Large industry emit many harmful gases into the environment. The introduction of harmful chemical into air leads to air pollution. The noise that it produces leads to noise pollution. The establishment of heavy industries, building of dams, and introduction of development tactics in tribal and rural zones has necessitated dislocation of the population. Thousands of crores of rupees have already flown from big business houses and corporate into the coffers of ruling class in India, as a result of which peasant families has been displaced from the traditional area. Destruction of forests as a consequence of felling of trees for industrial purpose has threatened the survival of the small communities of hunters and food gatherers. In response, the tribal and rural population, especially in central India, had reacted against their exploiter and initiated various movements. These movements were directed towards release of their land from all those who exploited them economically and culturally. Movement against Land Acquisition Bill 2015. The united issue-based struggle built against the draconian land acquisition provision sought to be imposed by the government has emerged victorious, as the government was forced to not repromulgate the ordinance. The All India Kisan Sabha, in a report published on August 31st, has congratulated the peasantry, the working people, and all who dependents on land for this noteworthy victory. The All India Kisan Sabha, along with hundreds of organizations of the peasantry, agricultural workers, Dalit, Adivasis, and those dependent on the land and people's movement, responded to harmony and burned copies of ordinance on January 30, 2015 in more than 300 districts across the country. The broad issue-based concord took solid shape as the Bhumi Adhikar Andolan, sending out a noisy and apparent message that the fights shall not be only against the draconian provision of the land acquisition ordinance, but also for the land right and other demands of the peasantry. Anna Hazare was joined by hundreds of supporters and Narmada Bachao movement activists Medha Patikar at Jantar Mantar, accusing the union government of antagonism towards farmer. Social activists launched a two-day protest against the controversial land acquisition ordinance there, coinciding with the commencement of the budget session of the parliament. Hazare said, and I quote, "How can you take away land without farmer consent? India is an agricultural country. The government must think about the farmer. The ordinance is undemocratic." Quote close. Protest against Yamuna Expressway. It is a tough journey along the porthole roads to Dankor in western Uttar Pradesh. The road that leads to some of the biggest agricultural villages in the state is in urgent need of consideration. But it is proposed a 8-lane expressway nearby which aims to cut the travel time from New Delhi to the historical town of Agra. Several opposition parties had raised doubt about the number of villages it would displace, but the actual figures appeared only after the government uses emergency power to acquire land from Greater Noida to Agra. This led to massive outrage and large-scale protest. Until 2008, the farmers got anything between Rs 250 and Rs 400 a square meter compensation. In 2008, masses from Ghori Bachera village in Greater Noida stood up in protest. Following this, the government doubled the price. There was also violent protest in Tappal village in Aligarh district in 2010. This projected the farmers' struggle in Uttar Pradesh into a political issue. As a result of this, the state government was obligated to frame a profit-sharing paradigm with the farmer, but the policy is yet to see the light of the day. After that, Bhata and Parsol village in Greater Noida saw one more violent protest, which became a huge political issue. Prakritik Suraksha Sampada Parishad protest. Odisha is no longer the land of Jagannath temple in Puri, the Sun temple in Kunar, or the Chilika lake. It is now best known for places such as Kalinganagar, Neyamagiri, Dinkoria, Kandahar and Kashipur, whose residents are up in arms against the acquisition of thousands of acres of land for mining and other industrial projects that can sound the death knell of their livelihood. In the wake of the state plan to mine bauxite and to locate alumina industry owned by MNCs, the earlier calm tribal belt of Koraput, Bolangir and Kalahandi district in Odisha have experienced a shock of huge tribal uproar and demonstration since the early 1990s. The land engaged by them is increasingly being invaded upon by mining mafia and multinational companies to utilize a large bauxite deposit in the region. These projects are displacing nearly 26 villages, affecting the livelihood of the inhabitant. The protests of the tribal people and other marginalized people facing involuntary displacement have been going for a long time. The movement is led by an organization of the local people known as Prakriti Suraksha Sampada Parishad. Despite widespread poverty and inferior living situation of the people in Odisha, none are willing to give up their agricultural land and to sacrifice land and homes for the cause of the industry. Resistance of people is in Jagat Singhpur district in coastal Odisha, where there is a resistance to the location of a mega steel plant by POSCO, a South Korean company. This company has been planning to set up 12 million ton capacity steel plant near Paradip port since June 2005. An organization of the local people has been spearheading the resistance since the state government signed an MOU with the company and notification for the acquisition of land for the project was issued. The project is aimed at displacing and affecting the livelihood of people living in the villages. According to government source, only 435 acres of private land will be acquired, but in reality the employment of more than 1 lakh people in the region is likely to be affected as it is a thickly populated area and the land is highly productive. Bisthapna Birodhi Manch. In June 2007, the inhabitant of 9 villages in 4 Gram Panchayats of Kyonjhar district resolved to oppose the Sterlite steel plant at Mahadei Joda. The villagers were afraid that this project would affect more than 1,000 acre productive agricultural land, river and forest. The local Bisthapna Birodhi Bunch pointed out that this huge steel plant will affect as many as 12 minor irrigation projects, 9 lift irrigation projects and 4 stream that presently help people of the region in growing a huge quantity of crops and vegetables. This will lead to a dislocation of 173 family in the aforesaid Gram Panchayat, particularly 3 villages, namely Dhatika, Tikarpada and Kedargarh will be the worst affected. In May 2006, the West Bengal government decided to acquire 997 acres of productive multi-cropping agricultural land for Tata Motor Company manufacturing unit in Singur. In Singur block, 83% of the land is irrigated and the crop produced are mainly paddy, potato and jute. Almost 6,000 families, including many working farmers and minor peasants, face eviction threat and dealt with successive loss of land and livelihood because of the acquisition of land. The land acquisition process was manifested with a sequence of violation, high authority disinterest, no sufficient compensation or rehabilitation package offered to the affected people, etc. As livelihood of real tillers were lost, the people of Singur declined to give up the struggle against land grabbing. The resistance movement of peasants faced state-led oppression when police came inside the village and cruelly attacked the leaders of these movements. Gradually, the Singur resistance got the help of larger CSO and human rights organization. Institute for Motivating Self-Employment and FIAN West Bengal were the pioneering organization who provided the support to the movement. After a long battle, Tata Company decided to leave Singur because of the failures of the state to give protection to the company worker. Karanpur Bachao Sangharsh Samiti. Like Odisha, the other tribal-based states like Jharkhand are equally affected by the globalized market forces that threaten the livelihood of the tribal people and poor peasants who are dependent on subsistence agriculture. On 2nd February 2001, the tribal people of Topkara in Jharkhand demanded the scrapping of Koil Kharo hydroelectric project. The project was likely to displace thousands of tribal families. Here too, the police resorted to unprovoked shooting, killing 10 tribal and injuring many more. Another project, Punkhri Barwadhi, at a total cost of 40,000 million was planned to commence operation in December 2007. The project displaced nearly 14,000 families. The affected villagers formed the anti-land acquisition organization Karanput Bachao Sangharsh Samiti (KBSS) and Karanpura Bisthapit Morcha (KBM). The scenario in Chhattisgarh. The tribal people of Chhattisgarh are losing their sustainable means of subsistence due to the opening of mines and setting up of many mineral-based industry in the state. Many villages located below the mine area complain that their agriculture is now completely ruined after long exposure to the pollution generated by the mines. The village near the mine are so severely affected by the pollution that they have made several representations to the district collector in Durg to save them from increasing land and water pollution. Development is a concept that includes the progressive enhancement in the quality of human life, in provision of food, clothing and shelter, and the setting up of healthy living with increasing permanence of life and happiness. However, the LPG paradigm of development in India reveals the signs and effect of widening inequality between the haves and have-not and the increasing deficiency of the poor and marginalized sectors of the population. In this state of affairs of development, if mines and mineral-based businesses are allowed to flourish in the mineral-rich tribal areas of the country and continue to displace the indigenous people who live in this region in order to enrich the affluent, privileged, the inequalities and poverty in these regions will be aggravated further. If land and other natural resources like water and forest that belong to the state, the local communities are required for industrial use or lost to development projects like river dams, the people who depend upon such resources become the direct, immediate victim of this project. In populous country like India, development based on high technology, minimizing the employment of human labor, but for the holistic development of the country cannot be denied. However, it is also necessary to ensure food security for the poor and half-starved people of the country. These needs can be fulfilled by pursuing a sustainable development model that ensures growth with equity and provides employment to all. The mantra in the end is that land is a precious commodity. With land, there are a lot of emotions of people of the area associated. Undoubtedly, we need to be a developed nation, but the common concern, the causes, and the people, the local populace should be involved when it comes to practice of taking land and using it for the development process. Development should be an inclusive one and should not exclude or should not result in land grabbing either in name of development by the state or by the MNCs or TNCs. Thank you.